it's McCowan. Makarov checks in. Back for Garpenlöv. Shoots! And that hit the post! For Garpenlöv. Shoots! For Garpenlöv. Shoots! Garpenlöv. Shoots! For Garpenlöv. Shoots!
If that goal goes in, the San Jose Sharks would advance to the Western Conference Final, where they would have faced the Vancouver Canucks. It makes you wonder, what would have happened next? What would have happened if Johan Garpenlöv scored that goal and sent the San Jose Sharks to the 1994 Western Conference Final? Today, we talk about it here on the Seals and Teal podcast. The Seals and Teal, an SJ Sharks podcast with your host, Lars Yonk. Hey Sharks fans, welcome to the great what ifs for Sharks history. What if Johan Garpenlöv scored that goal? What would have happened if the Sharks made it to that Western Conference Final? And could have they even beat the Vancouver Canucks and go to the final against the New York Rangers? Today, we discuss it here. But first, let's give a little recap how the Sharks got to this point. The 1993-94 season for the San Jose Sharks featured their first ever berth in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They were the 8th and final seed in that playoffs. They had 84 points, and one seed above them, the 7th seed, was the Vancouver Canucks at also 84 points. But first, the Sharks had to play the number one team who had 100 points that year, the Detroit Red Wings. No one gave the San Jose Sharks a chance. This was the first season of Scotty Bowman taking over the Red Wings, where, in years after, he would create a dynasty with them. The Sharks had 82 points and were kind of the laughingstock of the NHL for the first few seasons. They had one of the worst records in one of the seasons previous. But now, here they are making their first playoff berth. Again, no one gave this young but resilient San Jose Sharks a chance to beat the Detroit Red Wings. Absolute underdogs, a David versus Goliath showdown, the Sharks shocked the Detroit Red Wings by winning the first game 5-4. But things would go downhill a bit from here. Detroit would win 4-0 the next game and 3-2 in San Jose. But the Sharks fought back and tied the series in Game 4 with a 3-4 win. Finally, shocking again the Detroit Red Wings, the Sharks would win 6-4 in Game 5 and had a commanding 3-2 series lead. One more win and they would be off to the conference semifinals. Unfortunately, things didn't pan out. The Sharks would lose 7-1 against the Detroit Red Wings. And things didn't look great here going into Game 7. But the upset was complete when the Sharks won 3-2 thanks to Jamie Baker's heroic goal to send the Sharks to the conference final and eliminating the Detroit Red Wings. It was an absolute upset. But what a great start for the San Jose Sharks in their first ever playoff appearance. Now, I wish I could have witnessed this moment because it must have been so exciting to see the Sharks finally do something great in that first season of making the playoffs. After 3 seasons of just being a laughingstock, now people were going to take them a bit more serious. But now they had a new challenge. The Sharks would move on to face the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs who were once in the Western Conference. This would also go to a Game 7. This series was intense as well. Now, looking at some of the clips, I got to actually see a few of the game clips from the series. The Sharks looked great at moments, but then at other moments, it didn't look great as well for them. There were times where they would just collapse. It was a back and forth affair, and the Sharks would find themselves with a 3-2 series lead, one game from booking their ticket to the Western Conference Finals. Wow, what a start for this franchise. Now, it's 2-2, the game goes into overtime. Here is the chance for the Sharks to finally eliminate the Toronto Maple Leafs and move forward. Johan Garpenlöv has the puck on his stick, snaps the shot, and hits the post. It's a game of inches, and you wonder if it's 1 inch under, that puck goes in, and the Sharks are on their way to Vancouver. Unfortunately, this was not the case. The Maple Leafs would go on to win an OT and win Game 7. From there, the Maple Leafs would go on to lose in 5 to the Vancouver Canucks, who advanced to the finals and lost in 7 to the New York Rangers. Now, what would have happened if Johan Garpenlöv scored? That's the question many people wonder today. Could have the Sharks gone on even further? Could have they had a chance against that Vancouver team who were also making a run for themselves? That Vancouver team was having their own Cinderella run. And if the Sharks did somehow miraculously beat the Vancouver Canucks, what if they stood a chance against the President Trophy winners in the New York Rangers, who were finally there to win their first cup in over 50 years? Here's what would have happened most likely. I'm actually going to use this series, if the Sharks had made it versus Vancouver, to another series that would happen 9 years later. Anaheim versus Minnesota in 2003, Western Conference Final. Minnesota, who also in their very first playoff appearance, would go all the way to the Western Conference Final. The Sharks didn't, but let's say they did go in 94. Minnesota got absolutely swept by Anaheim, who was just taking out the competition and making their own run just like Vancouver. Two teams making a run, but ultimately the hot team would sweep up the competition. In 94, it was Vancouver. In 2003, it was Anaheim. In this case, the same fate most likely would have happened to the Sharks. They probably would have lost in 5, or probably swept in 4. But let's say the Sharks gave a run for their money because, of course, had they eliminated Toronto, they could have probably pushed another game on Vancouver. Let's say they lose to Vancouver in 6. That's going to be the most likely scenario case, but you never know. And let's say the Sharks miraculously beat the Vancouver Canucks. Could have they beat the Rangers, the eventual 1994 Stanley Cup champion? The answer is no. That Rangers team was stacked. They were on a mission, it was their destiny, and they were going to win that cup from the minute that season started. That's what I gotta say, Sharks fans. Had Johan Garpenlöv scored that goal, Sharks would have been in the Western Conference Final. They would have probably put up a good fight against Vancouver, but in the end, probably that would be all. Great first playoff appearance, and a few would happen afterwards. But that's that in the past, and all we can say is, let's hope that the Sharks make one day again another awesome run and actually get that cup. But what I gotta say is, 1993, 1994, fantastic start and a great first appearance in the playoffs for the San Jose Sharks. Well, that's one of the great what-ifs of the Sharks, had Johan Garpenlöv scored that goal. Thanks again for tuning in. Let me know what you think. And I've got a lot more what-ifs for the Sharks coming up soon. I'm your host, Lars Yonk. Stay tuned for more Seals and Teal. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.